And on that note, I'm joined by KUPPET Secretary General Akello Misori so that we discuss this matter further. He is a teacher with so many experience in the teaching profession. Asante sana for joining us, Mwalimu.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Karibu sana. You followed that story. What do you make out of that?
I think there's an element of not living up to the realities of what is in the ground, because the concerns which have been raised are genuine, and the evaluation process over the system, the issues which have been flagged in this curriculum design need to be addressed if we have to move forward. I do agree that there are proponents of this view that this curriculum is irrelevant and may not address the needs of this generation and maybe of this century. But one thing which is very positive about this curriculum is that it is learner-centered and it is also problem-centered. Going backwards to the system that we are coming away from,
that's 844.
Right. You realize that it was reduced to focus on the outcomes of results and the results which were not reflective of the understanding or which could solve the problems of the society. So the change was necessary to inject further realities of the day, because we are living in a society which is now globalized, and we have to do certain jobs online. We have to look at individual interests. We should not have a lot of failures, as it were, that we are churning out those people who are hopeless in the society. So the only industry that they look at as of currently is maybe we go to border kind of industry. So that is what is there. And it was focused on traditional fields like law, teaching, and maybe medicine and engineering. And which, of course, after finishing school, you have nothing to do because it did not prepare you adequately to face the challenges which are realities of the day. So in my view, I think the system as it is still being implemented in phases, and we are now in grade 5. What we need to underscore is that the issues being flagged out need to be addressed. Like, for example, as a teacher, I still feel that teachers have just been merely sensitized. They are not adequately prepared, especially on the core competencies which are required for them also to facilitate the entire learning process. I hope you have heard that some parents are talking about that they have been given a lot of work.
They're being overwhelmed.
Even those parents need to have been brought to book to understand. A system which assumes that all parents are at the same level is a system which needs to be relooked. So those are the weaknesses of the implementation process. But as from where I stand, the content must be harmonized by who implements that content and how that content is to be implemented. And that is where the teacher is. And that is what will make it a success. The teacher as a facilitator need to be on top of things, need not to pass the bag to parents whom they don't know have the competencies required in the implementation process.
Let me just bring you back to that question of parents complaining that, of course, we've seen on social media for a number of weeks that students come back home. Some of them we are being told to make certain things that even parents themselves do not understand. Could it be because parents were not given enough time to prepare, one, or the rate of implementation and rollout of the CBC was given a very short time for people to internalize and understand what CBC is all about?
You know, implementing a new system like CBC would have required a very multi-sectoral engagement and people being brought to book to have a buy-in. The parents, as was envisaged, were supposed to be properly sensitized. I know very well that the process of designing or coming up with this curriculum was thoroughly done even the 8441, which people are very nostalgic to go back to. This one has taken a lot of time. People went back and forth. We are looking at how it will be implemented and the shape it will take, the cost implication and so on, and the involvement. But let me just say it early here, and this is where the problem is, that some schools are implementing their own curriculum, not the CBC curriculum, because they have picked information from books, not necessarily from the design. And this is what the curriculum developers at KICD need to identify and proactively come out with the right model, the right message, which should be there. I don't think the curriculum envisage that parents are also part of the teaching process. But the parents are supposed to observe what their children are. Even in the previous system, the 844, you would realize that in the morning, even those in class 4 are carrying very big bags. Why didn't they leave them at school, for example? They were coming to do assignment at home. And this is now going to be being escalated during a CBC as if it is giving. It is giving the parent opportunity also to be aware of what the learner is doing. I have heard some parents complaining that they are being asked to print, take a photo and print. That issue should be looked into, so that we don't have certain kind of suspicions that some students are taking photographs, they are doing printing, and they have got profile file at school, which the parent also has a copy of at home. This is something which need to be identified, and that is why we are saying that in curriculum implementation, there is the process of monitoring and evaluation at every stage. I know very well that there was piloting, and piloting only took place in 470 schools countrywide, which included both private and primary and public schools at the primary level. Then the second point which I must bring early here. The process of implementation has not reached secondary schools. What we expect and what I think is not being done correctly, and that is in line with teacher preparedness, is that we expect that when this program now gets into secondary school, we have the secondary school teacher prepared, knows what will happen, knows that they will be receiving the number of students, and the content is well now dissected. But if that one does not happen, then the problems we realize in the primary section will still just be realized when it comes to 2023.
Perhaps for those who do not understand what CBC is all about, because most people are still struggling to understand even CBC itself. In simplified terms, what does it entail to a student, to a teacher, and to a parent?
And that is the core. That is the curriculum implementation. We have got 3 levels. We have the content in the design. Then we have the strategy of delivery. In the strategy of delivery is now the methodology of how the curriculum is being implemented and who does what. What is the learner doing, and what is the facilitator, who is the teacher doing? Are you getting this point? It is at this level of the strategy where there is a lot of misunderstanding. But what the CBC curriculum portends is that we want the learner to develop specific competencies at every stage, and the assessment will give us how the outcome is all about. For example, even in the previous systems, when I was in class 3, I was already able to read the Bible, for example. And then whenever I went to church, which was not out of school, I would be asked to read specific verses, maybe in the book of Genesis. That is an element of competence. Even in this regard, instead of having the learner to just write things and the teacher marks, the learner must show proof that this stage of using the verbs, the learner can well speak it. So this is the difference. So what is required in the teacher preparation is basically to reawaken the teachers' training. And that's why the Honorable Minister is saying that the teachers are well prepared. All these aspects of delivery of a curriculum content are things which teachers of the current grade are aware of. But quite often, when it is examination oriented, teachers definitely are the source of information, and the learner is basically to be a recipient who only produce this thing in the class. So we have been asked now to awaken some other strategies which are there, which are problem solving and learner centered. So in a class situation, we expect even the classroom arrangement not to be in the traditional where they sit in rows and columns. But at least they should be sitting in some kind of a conference so that at least you give them problems, they solve those problems, and you only assess.
Okay, Sec.Gen, was the country ready for CBC?
The country was more than ready for CBC. Because you remember, for a long time, many people had been criticizing even the 844, that it is not relevant to the job market, these people are half-baked and so on. Even at a time when Kenyan students were highly competitive in the continent and even the world. But still, we were not satisfied because we have universities producing even engineers who cannot even make needles. Or maybe they are not facilitated to make needles. So we were ready for this. And another aspect which make us not to be conscious of what was taking place before the implementation of SCBC. We are in a globalized village, and it is very competitive. Even the fonts that you're using today may not be relevant tomorrow. You need to inject in your youth certain competencies which will make them also to be competitive in their value. So there was no time for us to waste. In fact, currently, when you go home, like those who are in grade 3 and grade 4, there are people who can challenge you. They know how to keep the kitchen clean. These things are things which are, they used to learn it in home science, just theoretically. But now, the current component tells them that you must do. So that is why the parents are saying, but even in the traditional sense, you accompany your parents to go to the garden. You are also asked to do specific cleanups. But this one now, the method must be the method which is also ingrained in the curriculum. So that is what we are talking about.
Sec.Gen, what do you make of, perhaps, let me just be a devil's advocate, if I can use that word, memes and pictures going around on social media, teachers are telling students to go and make a scarecrow. How does that improve a child's life in future, if that's what happens out there? Students are being told to do, I remember with us we were being told how to make a pot, go and get a clay somewhere, do a pot, or make a broom, or come with, uteo, to sieve. Is this the reality on the ground?
I think misconceptions arise from the fact that people want to make fun of something which is very important. That one I cannot control. But one thing which is very basic is that if we get the content and we interpret it correctly, then we can definitely do the right thing. I know, and I think I've said it elsewhere, that there are people who would wish to make this system to appear as if it is just for fun. Fun is not part of this business. But the other benefits which are real are there. For example, the child is being exposed to all fantasy in terms of learning. For example, you are in the media, and I'm also a teacher. You realize that you will rediscover that you are supposed to go to the media after Form 4 in the traditional sense. But we are being prepared through so many learning challenges, so that at the time you are going to grade 10, you already know that my life is not in medicine. My life is not in technology. My life is basically in sports. My life is supposed to be in performance arts. So those are the things. It gives the child an opportunity to identify his or her own
So
talent.
what is the government's secret end game about CBC that people do not understand?
The government should not have a secret end game. You're talking about what is the
what is the end game? Because
game? The
perhaps
end
people
game
are just scratching over the surface.
The end game of this curriculum is to ensure that at least every learner is not left out in the learning process. That values and interests are incorporated in the curriculum. So that as I come out, the idea of wastage is something of the past. Remember, the government currently, I also want to play devil's advocate. It is lack of their communication which has made these things to escalate to this level. Like from yesterday, what the cabinet secretary did with his team has put to rest certain misgivings, certain anxieties. So we expect that at the end of this, the entire circle, we shall be having learning outcomes which are geared towards pursuit of individual interest first, and then we are also going to be at the same level with other players in education and maybe in technology, and we also give opportunity for the learners to pursue their life. Currently, you believe and you trust me that there are people who are earning beautiful money in sports. But even in theater, they are earning beautiful money. Why can't we expose everybody to pursue that life? Most of these people you see are celebrities, are people whose backgrounds in academics may be limited to very, very narrow area. Why don't we give them such opportunity? But this is what this curriculum is giving.
But Sec.Gen,
that is not a secret of the government, but a secret of this curriculum.
Absolutely. So what do you make of the cases of inequalities? We have certain parts of this country where a child can't even afford a textbook or even an exercise book or even a pen. And here the CBC
You are right. The government, I think, has more books, to the extent that even the teachers are complaining that the books that they have is more than enough. I don't want to delve into that. But one thing which is there is that education is a right of every child, and that is in the Constitution. And even at Article 53, subsection B, subarticle B, it says that where the interest of the child is involved, it supersedes all other rights. Have you get that point?
Right.
So we expect Parliament to allocate sufficient resources to bridge the inequality divide, so that at least all our schools are at the same level. You realize currently what is the Oloo is we are thinking of so many things, yet the society should provide this. We have teachers who have to charge extra levies because they want to bridge the gap of what is missing. Are we at that level?
Sure.
That is also a concern. Why must teachers be asked, or why must boards of management be asked to levy when the government has already prioritized education? So we expect Parliament to make sufficient allocation. For this system to succeed, this curriculum to be implemented accordingly, we need more teachers. And more teachers can only be got if the Teacher Service Commission is sufficiently funded to increase teacher number.
And that is one of the challenges that CBC is facing.
To deal with what we call teacher-pupil ratio, which is recommended by UNESCO and even the global best practices.
What is the ratio as we speak?
In this case, you know, what the Kenyan standard is about 1 to 40. But what obtains in some schools, you realize that a teacher is addressing a public baraza in a classroom situation. With 100% transition and with this competency-based curriculum in place, we expect the government to do better. So that better, I know, is ingrained in ensuring that you employ well-trained, competent to handle this curriculum, which is also addressing the issue of numbers. But in our circumstance, you realize that yesterday I had a conversation with a Catholic priest who is a sponsor of a school in Homa Bay, in a place in Suba South. He's telling me that the school has 700 pupils, and with the 2 sets of learners. One undergoing CBC, the other one is the old system. There are only 9 teachers in that school. So they are compelled to employ an extra 8 teachers, and therefore they have to charge parents to pay this. You can see the disconnect, that the schools are not properly staffed,
right,
and therefore the idea of quality, even in the previous system, is now in question.
Then don't you think the government ought to have prepared everybody else, including schools, equip schools with the proper items and all the facilities they require before rolling out the CBC? Because as I said, as we are right now, it's becoming more expensive even for the schools.
You know, CBC was not starting education in Kenya, and it was coming in just to as a memo we were supposed to address the transition. What preparations were there in terms of facilities, and the facilities and infrastructure, which now includes also the human resource. So these ones could be done progressively. I've already said this program has now just reached grade 8. It will, in 2022, it will be in grade 6. And then 2023, we shall have 2 sets of Form 1s. There's still sufficient time for us to prepare even colleges. Like, I'm very glad that the Teacher Service Commission and the Ministry of Education are already calling those teachers who are not yet employed with teacher certificate from teachers training colleges to undergo a 1-year program to be upgraded to diploma. I hope it is in readiness for the implementation of CBC. Because also the general training of teachers currently, we shall have the least qualification to be a diploma. That is an effort in the right direction. But one area which now require the effort of everybody, because education is not just affecting Ministry of Education. We expect, and in fact, this is something which I focus on Parliament, because all resources are allocated at Parliament level. And then at that level, the focus should be to allocate sufficient funds to address the gap created by the demands of this curriculum. Then we need Teacher Service Commission to be properly funded. That is when we also expect the teachers to be adequately prepared. Those who are already in service, for example, you cannot tell me that we were to halt education, take the 300,000 teachers for training courses. We have had it before. Like myself, I had my first teachings trained for nearly 3 years as a trained teacher. But I was being told every day, given sufficient upgrading through workshops. We can as well have these current teachers undergoing workshops and to adopt new changes, changing their attitudes. At the same time, we prepare teachers training colleges and the universities to also now embrace the new curriculum and its demands.
Let me ask you this question. Perhaps the question most people are asking is that, is it possible to give parents time, even when teachers are giving students homework to do, the assignments, so that teachers can also be given time, perhaps over the weekend, to do these CBCs, because almost everyone is busy? You rarely find people in their houses or their homes.
I don't want to go into the details of what people happen during the weekend. This is a curriculum whose demands were known from the beginning. What I'm saying, a very concerted effort to retool the current teacher, to upgrade their competencies, to address the challenges posed by the new curriculum. We need also the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development to listen to what is being flagged out as gray areas in this content. And then we need to adjust our strategies of curriculum delivery. There is nothing very strange in this curriculum, different from any system. Let me just tell you, Oloo, in Kenyan teachers go to China, they go to Japan, they even go to US and America to teach there. And those systems are quite different in the mode of curriculum delivery. What is required is that you are taken to workshops and you continuously upgrade your skills.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, even the old system, if you continue to use the notes of yesterday, they may not be relevant today because the learners are not the same.
Yeah.
The learning outcomes may be the same, but learners are not the same. They come up with new challenges, and they also force you to go to school, to go to the library. Like now you have to go to the internet to look for things. These are things which are supposed to be in an implementation process, whereby the feedback it got and the reviews are carried out. Let me tell you, in the 844, well, the intentions were very bright. They were meant to make us a technological hub in the region. But over time, the complaints that you people are raising currently made us to go back to rote learning, where the focus is basically on getting grade A and so on, and going to Alliance High School and Mango High School, and then coming out just to become a lunatic in the streets riding about a border. We must focus our attention on the outcomes of this curriculum.
Of the curriculum.
Yes.
The case and the question of inequality is something that many people are talking about. How do you
that is the reason for which I'm saying that one thing we must to go back and define what a school is in our situation. And if you cannot just define a school to be an area which is maybe 2 acres and maybe some classrooms, what do we have in such a school? It is what will describe or define what we need to have in that school. Once we have staffing norms in schools, you are dealing with issues of inequality, because you are talking about the child to be coming from a poor background. But the location of that school is also showing a disparity. You have said that certain schools in the city of Nairobi or in Kisumu and Mombasa are better off than a school in Mandera or Kapedo region. We should not expect all our learners to be, some of them learning under a tree, but yet we are in the same country. We need to have equalization fund to make facilities in schools there. For example, we are now talking about pathways, and I've seen in the definition of the ministry saying that the certain schools will not be allowed to take particular pathways. That one will also bring the element of inequality. If we have 100% transition, then at least, and we are prepared, we need to have all schools providing similar curriculum. Otherwise, we should just go back to the previous system where we had about 18 technical schools, specifically technical schools, so that at grade 10, we know very well that in Kenya, because we have about we have got about 105 national schools, we should be told that half of them will be taking specific pathways and will be giving equal chances for the learner. That is what we have. But I don't think we are going to change to have Northern Frontier District having similar facilities if there is not a proactive approach by our parliament to make the facilities there similar to those ones in Nairobi. We must also secure our environments to make learning possible. Note that to see that for nearly 1 month in Laikipia, learners have been out of school. When they are asked to come home...
But this perhaps might take a very long time to be effected.
But it is choices. If we want to move together, then the nation must make choices. These choices include that if we want to secure our borders, then we must also secure our villages. Then we must also make provision for clean water for everyone. And then schools must be facilitated to have light so that everybody can access internet. Note that some people, for a whole day, you have been there at the cyber, and then others got it real time because their connectivity is faster than yours. That is how to come up with an equal society. So, but unless that one is done, I don't think you are going to say that my mother should cook ugali in your home.
Yes.
We must have every household preparing their own things and they're comfortable.
All right. Yeah. Give me a picture of ever since it was introduced. It's progressive. So far, where are we? What is your assessment?
The assessment is that the program is on. It has challenges,
right?
But the challenges can be surmounted if we progressively move together, and especially when the Ministry of Education, the Teacher Service Commission, and the other stakeholders are focused in making it a reality and a success. Yeah.
Why do you think there's a lot of an uproar about the CBC? Was it political, or Kenyans are just getting fascinated about the whole of the CBC? How was it received from the day of conception until where we are right now?
Every curriculum must have a political backing. Let me just be very, very blunt. Historically, even the Japanese curriculum changed, especially after the Hiroshima of 1945. The American curriculum changed when they realized that Russia had already taken something to the moon.
Yes.
It took overnight. It must be a political decision. So the idea of saying it was political, non-political is neither here or there. You remember, the president of this nation wanted to leave a legacy of a transformed education system. So can't you see, you cannot remove his finger from this process. And then the Kenyans, stakeholders, including ourselves, debated this thing for over 2 years. There were so many task forces and so on. A lot of resources were injected in this. And therefore, we cannot run away from it as Kenyans. Politics must be at the center of education system.
As a teacher, give me a picture of what you can foresee in the next 10, 15, 20 years to come under CBC.
A transformed society. If we don't mutilate the intended objective of this curriculum, we will be a middle income economy. Education is a major driver, and what this curriculum portends is to make people who are very independent, those people who are job creators, not job seekers. So that is what this curriculum is trying to bring. What is required is our investment. Education is not a cheap affair, so we cannot cry like babies in this circumstance. We must have dialogue, constant dialogue, and therefore the Minister for Education need not to be annoyed when we are asking so many questions about this. He should just be very, very frank. Let him communicate and let him develop policies which will make this policy succeed.
All right.
Otherwise, there is no issue talking about its failures. I only see success in this curriculum.
All right. Yeah. Let me leave that at that, but let me ask you a question at this particular point, Mwalimu, is that KUPPET is pushing for an abolition of boarding schools. Is that right?
That is fair and timely. Yes.
Why so?
Because, for example, in the new system, we must also deal with this issue you are talking about, inequality. So if children are going to be left out of learning because they cannot afford boarding fees charged in some of these high-end schools, then what is feasible is that we need to refocus on establishing sufficient infrastructure so that a child can go to school within reach. Oloo, do you know that elsewhere you cannot pass two streets
to go to school?
You must just go to school, especially in early childhood. You are compelled by law just to go to the next third street if you have to go far.
I walked for 5 kilometers.
But you walked to 5 kilometers?
Yes.
And you left even another one which was within just 500 meters from home. Myself, I went through a very interesting encounter in primary school. The school where I learned was just 200 meters from my home. And in primary, I did not go to any boarding school. My dad was a teacher, and we just learned like any other child in the school. And I'm here talking to you today. But there are certain children, like, I want to give you one example. And in a school in Nyanza region, where a young boy who passed with 414 marks was sent away from school after 3 weeks. Yet the minister was in a certain place flushing out children to go to school.
Yeah.
This one here has 414 marks and cannot proceed because the fees which being charged in boarding school cannot be there. And yet this boy was living, is coming from one of the wards in Kabondo Kasipul, and which is next to Thoro Secondary School. Why do you leave Thoro Secondary School when you are going to Form 1? Simply because you want to go to a boarding school, which is considered to be a high end.
It could be because of choices.
The element of choice should now be paid for.
Right.
But where somebody cannot make a choice because of the status of the economy, then you walk to school, because at Thoro Secondary School, the boy could have finished Form 4 with less than 120,000 for the 4 years. But in this other school, the first year loan, you are supposed to pay 67,000. So these are things which are there that KUPPET considers that why don't we make learning possible to everyone? And this one can happen if you can learn through your local school.
This is still a proposal. But how possible will it get? Because I'm imagining abolishing boarding schools across the country.
Although, let me tell you, boarding schools carry less than 30% of the students in this country. I know because of your name, you must be coming from where I come from.
Right.
There's a school in Oma Bay called Wiobiro Secondary School. Wiobiro has the pupils to population which is similar to Oma Bay High School. All these students are riding to school, and the performance of that school is also just competitive, like any other school like Oma Bay, Agorosare and so on. So what you are trying to fear is the fear of the unknown, because in this country it is believed that in boarding schools is where learning takes place. But say, for example, even in Kisumu, for a long time we have only had those schools in Kisumu town. Kisumu Day, Kisumu Boys, Kisumu Girls, and even Lions. Most of those schools for a long time had day. They were having day scholars, both teachers and students. It is very easy to manage as a school, a day school. But the complexity which is in the boarding school increase the work for teachers, which is not even paid for. And also increase certain vices to be managed by the school, which are not necessary. So for example, the head teacher, the principal becomes a watchman, becomes also a housekeeper. And the core business of a school is not to do those things like watching over others, but at least transacting the business of education.
From the proposal, allow me to interrogate this Sec.Gen. Make me understand what happens to the boarding schools now. For example, let's talk about even Alliance Girls or Alliance High School or even Lenana School. What happens to those students who...
This is a process.
Right.
Maybe what you may not have known currently.
Right.
That even the parent, the board of management of Lenana School, for example, and the Nairobi as a county, put pressure on Lenana School to expand learning for those children who are coming from within Nairobi. Are you aware that even a school, most schools are taking 85% from their locality? If it is reduced, because there is 100% transition, that a school like, for example, a school like Ngere High School in Kisumu should take 85% from the local primary schools. Not from the division, but local primary schools. With 100% transition, we will be sorting out this issue. But that is something which is yet to be debated. And we want to give the country that proposal. Let them grapple with it. If it finds favor in policymakers, then we will not have issues. Because even currently, most schools are day schools in Kenya.
The government and the Ministry of Education has been fighting and trying to improve and delocalization or even of teachers. So, for instance, a student from Siaya invited or called to join Alliance High School in Nairobi. So what happened to that students who got A-plane? Will they just remain in that particular area, or how will even the admission of students happen when such a proposal?
We are not killing the idea of choice,
right,
and the idea of schools which have reached certain status where they must admit certain qualities. But I've given you a scenario where a student cannot pursue education simply because boarding school has become very prohibitive.
Yeah,
have you get that point?
Sure.
I have got an interest in a school in Nairobi because I was assisting a student to join Form 1. But unfortunately, when the child gave me another feedback after the first half term, then the school fees has been increased by 25,000 this year. Imagine that is a child who is being assisted.
Yeah.
The school, the assistance has now increased my burden by 25,000. Don't you think if that child was not being assisted by somebody like a general secretary, the child can just leave that school? Because the school want to build a boarding section at a cost of 80 million.
Okay.
80 million can build so many day schools in this country. But one school wants to build the dormitory at a cost of 80 million.
80 million.
So this is the kind of reasoning that at KUPPET we are thinking that a solution can be sought from having day schooling, which are less expensive to manage and very convenient to many learners.
Okay.
Like in grade 7 and 8, these children are still very young. Very young. So, and you want to remove them from the comfort of their families.
Yeah.
And from what the values they need to learn. You want to take them to a boarding school.
Okay.
Are you saying we are killing the society? Let our children be children, and let the society also impart the necessary values to the youth.
Okay.
Yeah.
As a presenter, and I deal a lot with politics, you've talked about Othoro, Ubiro, and come from Homa Bay County. Sec.Gen, are you going to politics?
That is what Homa Bay is ready for now. Yeah.
That's what they say.
Homa Bay is just ready for Akello to be the next governor.
That's just a rumor that somebody asked me.
I don't want to use this platform of CBC to say it, but because you have asked.
Now that you are here.
Because you have asked.
Are you in your position?
You can see I am the better bet. I'm the secret of that.
Why not me? I also come from Homa Bay County. Why not me?
Because this is something which you cannot just wake up and think about. I have been thinking about it. I've been approached by the residents.
Yes.
And this is what I'm giving
Which
them.
position? Because I've had so many guests coming on the show and declare their candidature for 2022.
But it is going to be a democratic election.
Yes.
So I'm going for the hottest seat. The seat of the governor.
Okay.
Yes.
Director, you had that. I hope you've recorded that. We will hold him accountable come 2022 and see how he will deliver. If he happens
in
to
fact,
be
what you may not know, look,
might be my next governor.
I am right now mobilizing war chest.
Okay.
War chest.
Okay.
To capture that seat. It is not going to be easy for those people who have also come here to say.
My dad knows you.
Yeah. He knows, yeah.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We've been talking to the Sec.Gen of KUPPET, that is Akello Misori. We've just been talking about matters education. And hey, politics. We have to talk about politics. Kidogo too. Thank you so much for joining us. We are taking a very short break, and when we come back, Jane Wamboy still continues with the show. We're taking a break. We'll be right back.
Thank you.